Hello, and you're all very welcome along to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman podcast, and it is the last preview inter-county show of the year, unless there's replays of the Camogie this weekend. We'll see if there's any draws. If there's not, though, it's more than likely it is the last inter-county show or preview show of 2025. I'm delighted to be joined by Seamus Brady here. I'm your host, Matthew Hurley. Seamus Brady from An Cluiche has joined me this evening to discuss the All-Ireland Camogie finals, which are happening on Sunday. So we'll discuss the senior final, the intermediate, and the Premier Junior decider. Before we get into the finals, Shelters Capture Athletics are sponsors. If you want to basically your own, check them out if you haven't already. So yeah, Seamus, the year's flown by. Obviously, the LGFA is done. The hurling, done. Men's football, done. We're now into the final of the Camogie, and to be honest, I think this is probably one of the best years of Camogie, to be honest with you, because there's no B teams. There's 6 unique counties, which is absolutely brilliant to see. And looking forward to the action.
Yeah, man, I'm buzzing for these finals. I've a lot going on them because I said at the start of the year that Cork would win the hurling, and I said Cork would win the Camogie. I said that Galway would win the LGFA, and I said that Donegal would win the All-Ireland football. Now, a month ago, that predictions are looking pretty good. Galway were in the semi-final. Donegal obviously getting to the final. Cork were 6 points up at half-time. And then obviously we know what happened. Galway lost in the semi-final to my own Dubs. Kerry beat Donegal, and Tip had the mother of all comebacks against Cork in that second half. Now, I did say from the start of the year that if you wanted a slam dunk as who was going to retain their All-Ireland title, it is Cork. In the Camogie, they have looked levels above everybody in their back-to-back All-Ireland titles. You think about, the final against Waterford 2 years ago, where they absolutely swept them out the gate, and then look, last year Galway put up a good fight, but it felt like, I love using a UFC metaphor, but like Khabib, when Khabib would win by decision and it'd be a unanimous decision. It's like, yeah, you put up a good fight, but you were never really going to win. I feel like that was how last year's final felt. Galway made it a bit sticky for Cork at stages, but Cork were still always the team that were, out in front and the more dominant on the day. So I do think there's a lot that Galway can take from that final, and obviously we're going to break it down. But I do think this final is different in the sense that there is a clear favourite. And the question that we're asking is, can Galway stop Cork? And if so, how? What are the things that they need to do? What are the tactics they need to implement? What are the things that they need to learn from last year? And what are the things that they've been doing great this year? But as I was saying, if Cork get over the line, then at least I've got one of the champions' predictions correct this season. If they don't, then I'll just quietly go cry in the corner and get ready for next season, man. But yeah, buzzing for these finals. Cork, Galway, 2 counties that are absolute royalty in Camogie, and I mean, there's not much more you can ask for than a final pairing than that.
Exactly so. And faithful podcast, obviously Liam White coming in with a comment here. Laois, Offaly and Cork to win this weekend. An Offaly man saying Laois will beat Armagh.
Yeah, he's done that a few times, hasn't he? Like, he claims to be an Offaly man. He's dishing out compliments to Laois Liam, I swear he said that Laois were going to win the intermediate as well.
Probably did.
LGFA. He's not even getting them right, and he's still giving them out. But yeah, I don't know. I'm only messing him. But at least he said Offaly would win. If he didn't say Offaly would win, he said Laois would win. I mean, that studs up on the shins. That's a red card.
Yeah, exactly so. But as we did with the LGFA preview with Niamh O'Sullivan, a brilliant episode, by the way. A privilege to have her on. Obviously, talk about Meath. Unfortunately, Meath got a bit of a hammering off Dublin last week. But like that podcast at the LGFA, we aren't going to talk about week in the Gaelic games. We are going to talk about things that matter, and that is the games themselves. So we'll start off with the senior final, and we'll discuss this in depth. Obviously, it is Cork against Galway in the All-Ireland Senior Camogie final this Sunday, 5:15 p.m. on RT2. It's a bit of a strange time. It happened again. It happened before last year as well. Not probably the best of times, but then again, there was complaints about the LGFA junior final between Louth and Antrim being on at 11:45 in the morning. So look, you can't please everyone. That's the line out of that. But it is the second year in a row that Cork and Galway meet in the final, and obviously with pieces and Southern Star and stuff like that. I did a bit of research on this, and the last 10 championship meetings between the sides, there's been 5 wins for Cork, 5 wins for Galway. You can't be any more evenly matched than that. But having said that, Seamus, Cork have won the last 3 championship meetings against Galway. So can that run continue? And of course, they're going for a 3 in a row. If they win the 3 in a row, it's going to be the first time a Cork team has done it since 1973. But even since the 1973 3 in a row, or 4 in a row as well, you could call it that. Only one county has ever done the 3 in a row in Camogie, Wexford, between 2010 and 2012. So it is a big achievement to get through. But Cork have been the standard bearers throughout the season. But it is a game to look forward to.
Oh, absolutely, man. And when you list it off like that, you realise kind of how close to history Cork are. That, you know, you realise how close to history Cork are this weekend. I mean, you look at that great team that Cork had in the 2010s. It still had Ashton Thompson there. They had Rena Buckley. They had Breach Corkery. You know, absolute icons of the game. And they couldn't do a 3 in a row. And now Cork stand at the doorstep of it. That Wexford team wasn't able to go further than 3 in a row. And I personally think that this Cork team absolutely has the capability of doing that, should they get over this All-Ireland final first. The thing that you're looking at when you're looking at how far this Cork team can go, it's very similar to the Cork LGFA team under Eamon Ryan. It was like when you looked at the age profile of the players when they won the first All-Ireland, you were like, there's only a couple of these that look even close to retirement. The rest of them are all 23, 24, meaning this team ain't going nowhere for a long, long, long time. And that's the thing with this Cork Camogie team, is when you see the players that have departed over the last 3 years and then who stepped in to replace them, the age profile of these players, like Saoirse McCarthy's going nowhere, Amy O'Connor's going nowhere. These players are sticking around and they're going to retire with bags of All-Ireland medals. There's no question about it. It's just, will they do the record of getting 3 and then maybe 4 in a row? I didn't actually know the stat that you just said there. I didn't know it was so far back to the 70s, but that really says about how competitive Camogie has been, that, you know, you have the great Tipperary team of Ciara Gaynor, you have the great Wexford team of Ursula Jacob, you have the great Kilkenny teams of Grace Walsh and Miriam Walsh, you have the great Cork teams of Rena Buckley, Breach Corkery, and still nobody can go further than 3 in a row. I do think if anybody's going to do it in our lifetime, this Cork team is a solid bet of being able to do that, because, as I said, the age profile, players drop out, key players drop out of the teams at key times for those champions that I was naming there. But when is the last time that a team did 4? Do you know when's the last time the team did 4?
That Cork team between 1970 and 1973.
Okay, and then has anyone done 5?
I haven't checked that far back, to be honest with you. That's way back, I'd say.
So we're talking black and white TV for sure.
Probably. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Dublin had some great camogie teams back in, like,
Dublin had some amazing teams. The Kathleen Mills teams. That was iconic, and like, I mean, she's an absolute hero in camogie for Dublin Gaelic games in general. Kathleen Mills is a name that's just synonymous with success. But this Cork team, you're right. It's just, you look at the age profile, you look at the togetherness of that group, and you look at how they've just not even noticed players retiring, how they've not even noticed players that have been injured. Like the fact that, you know, Hannah Looney can go play with the footballers and Cork just get on with it, business as usual, and they get the result on the weekend that she was gone to the footballers. Don't even really notice her absence. But obviously having her back in is massive as well. They've so much firepower up front. That's another key thing. You look at like the Limerick hurlers as an example of that, when they're at their peak going 4 in a row, that you can't just focus on stopping Aaron Gallan. You can't just focus on stopping Keane Lynch. You can't just focus on stopping Garrod Hegarty. There's always threats. And with Cork, you can't just focus on stopping Amy O'Connor because Katrina Mackey's there. You can't just focus on them two because Circa McCartan is there. There's so many threats in that Cork forward line, which is another reason why they've been so successful. They're not completely reliant on 1 or 2 players to do the business every time. They have multiple threats, which make them a nightmare for every defence going up against them. And I actually think this Galway defence has a claim to be the best one in the country. I still do. I think when you look at like Roisin Black is absolutely fantastic there, fullback, and they built the defence around her. But by God, it's it's arguably the best defense coming up against definitely the best attack. So that's a really, really interesting matchup.
To answer your question on the last team to do 5 in a row, and You actually didn't have to go too far after Cork in the early 1970s. It's actually Dublin from 1957 to 1966. They did 10 in a row.
Crazy. Well, it's in the GA Museum. Kathleen Mills's medal collection is there, and I think she's 13 medals or something like that.
I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you. Yeah, that's Antrim won it in 1956, but then from 1955 all the way back to 1948, Dublin won every All-Ireland then as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's Kathleen. Obviously, Kathleen came in at some point during that period, but crazy stuff.
It is, to be fair. Like it was always Dublin, Cork, Antrim, and then other than those three counties, the first county to win it was Wexford in 1968. So a lot of history going back there. But worth noting as well, since that Wexford brilliant team with Ursula Jacob and all them, it's been really a triangle of Kilkenny, Galway, Cork, with the exception of Waterford reaching the final in 2023. But obviously Waterford got a bit of a trimming, I would say, off Cork, obviously harshly so, because they had a brilliant season up until that point. But is that an indication? Like we mentioned, there isn't a team that hasn't done 3 in a row since way back in the day, or something ridiculous like 10 in a row. But then there's the 3 same teams there as well. So how would you describe that? Would you describe it as competitive, or would you describe it as maybe a closed door in some ways? How would you describe that, Seamus?
Well, it's a really interesting question, and like without being too harsh, the Waterford getting to an All-Ireland final, you do also have to factor in that they were on opposite sides of the draw to Galway and Kilkenny that year, if memory serves. So once the draw was made, we knew we were going to get an All-Ireland final without one of those 3 for the first time in, I think, nearly a decade, wasn't it? Like it's always been Cork, Kilkenny, Galway, as far as my memory goes, really. Like, I mean, my memory of Gaelic games kind of extends to, I'd say, 2009 is my first real memory of Gaelic games where I can remember consistently being invested in a championship year. No, it was actually, I lied, 2008. That was because I remember Maddie Ford in the football. I remember Tyrone paced in Dublin in an All-Ireland quarterfinal. And that was the era where the Wexford team were on the rise. The Cork LGFA team were dominating. I remember all of those 4. And that was my first kind of memories of it. But since then, since that Wexford team faded away, it's always been Cork, Galway, Kilkenny in the final, always. And that year was a real kind of, oh, wow, like we're going to get somebody different in the final. And consistently, apart from that, Waterford and Tip have been the 2 front runners for teams to try and knock the triangle out of shape. And Tip losing the way that they did to Galway in the semi-final this year, it feels big, because I remember being at the very Camogie League final in 23 with Karen Kennedy hit the goal for Tip and they beat Galway at the death. Like Harry Dolan missed a free and Tip won the league title. And I remember, Dennis Kelly giving his post-match speech, and they had caught Devan, who was going to come back into the panel, and it really seemed like Tip could be an outside bet to actually slide in and knock Cork off their perch. And then they haven't managed to break the glass ceiling. They haven't managed to get to that next level. They haven't been able to break through and get to a final. And personally, I do think if they got to the final in 23, I think they would have given Cork a better game. I think they're a little bit tighter at the back. I don't think they would have conceded 5 goals. But then again, I mean, pressure would have done strange things, but I think Tip's experience of having played in a national final in Croke Park that year would have made a huge difference to them on the day. I think they would have been a little bit more settled, because I do think the nerves got to Waterford, especially in that first quarter, and Cork ran amok. But that year, man, just to get into the wider point, Camogie needs them. The Camogie needs, like when Dublin beat Kilkenny last year, that's a result that Camogie needs. Camogie needs Limerick. Camogie needs Clare, needs Wexford, needs Antrim. It needs these teams to rise up and challenge the status quo, and it needs Tip and Waterford to take the next step and become All-Ireland contenders, not just people that are trying to challenge Cork and maybe beat them in Munster. No, out from the outset, All-Ireland contenders, just like we had in the LGFA this year. I mean, I know Dublin ended up on top of the pile, but if you told me in May that Armagh won it, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me that Meath won it, I wouldn't have been too surprised. Kerry, not surprised at all. Galway, not surprised at all. Like, that is what the LGFA has managed to establish. There's about 6 teams that I realistically think could have won the All-Ireland this year had everything gone right for them. Camogie, it's really only, in my opinion, 2 this year. Cork and only Galway, in my opinion, who can stop them.
The thing is, Kilkenny put up a good performance against Tip, but obviously that isn't, like, they did well in extra time. And to be fair, if Kilkenny's goal through Caoimhe Kerr-Berta, if that stood, then Kilkenny could have been in the semi-final versus Galway, and we could have been talking maybe about a Kilkenny and Cork final. But to answer your question on Dame 3, it has always been Dame 3, bar that year in 23 since 2013. Yeah, Wexford were the last ones in 2012. Yeah. And that was the last.
We were 12 years old, man.
Exactly, yeah. But I agree with you completely about Tipperary as well. And they were saying Caughtavan was coming back. Like, Caughtavan was gone this year as well. It's it's like Tipperary missed the boat, unfortunately. That is kind of a shame. Like, Karen Kennedy, Caughtavan and all them might be over the hill in many ways, which is a shame. But obviously we are talking about Cork and Galway in this Camogie final, and they deserve to be here. And we'll start off with Cork and their stats and scores in their run to the final. And we'll start off with Cork's journey to the final, if this is the right image. And of course it is. So a pretty big team, Seamus, in these journeys to the finals, I see, is there's quite a lot of batterings, unfortunately, which something that needs to be fixed, obviously.
Those first 3 games, all of them actually, 10-point win is the least.
9-point win is the least against Clare.
Oh my God.
Like, that's to read them off. Anyway, they beat Limerick the first day out, 6-20. Cork beat Limerick, of course, 6-25 to 5 points. Don't know what happened. Like, Limerick do have some decent players coming out of UL, and hopefully they can bide their time into the team, but that was an almighty battering there. Tipperary, they lost to Cork that time, 321 to 19. Amazing stat, actually. Amy Lee didn't concede a goal before that game since the round robin of the All-Ireland Championship last year in 2024. Saoirse McCarthy was telling me in the Star Sport podcast. That's unreal in its own right. Then Cork did beat Clare 21 points to 19. Obviously, Cork's tightest game, 9-point margin. They beat Wexford 5-21 to 11 points. Wexford obviously ended up in the relegation playoff this season. And against Waterford, 121 to 111. But on paper, that looks like a bad defeat. But Waterford really put it up to Cork. They were 1-7 to 9 points up at half-time. They were performing pretty well. And obviously, Cork just had a little bit more energy, more subs off the bench, and they got over the line in the end. They've averaged a score 3.22 per game and conceded an average of 11 points. That's an average winning margin of 20 points. That's absolutely unreal in its own right. But you look at Cork's scores here. Amy O'Connor on top of the tree there with 5 goals and 30 points. Saoirse McCarthy up there as well with 1 goal and 18. Clodagh Finn has 4 goals and 7 points. Now, Clodagh Finn was injured for the semi-final. That's why Katrina Mackey was a late replacement for her. Hopefully, Clodagh is fully fit for the final. Katrina Mackey there, as we mentioned, she's on 2.11 herself. Orla Callan at 2.6, and then you can see Emma Murphy, Saoirse McCartan up there. Orla Mullins, of course, with 1-4, 1-2 came in the semi-final against Watford. 1-2 with 6 minutes, may I add as well. That was brilliant for Orla Mullins there. But you look at Cork, well, the journey to the final, I think a lot of the Cork players were actually saying, I think Ashley Thompson, I was seeing Therese O'Callaghan interview her on the Irish Examiner during the week, and Ashley actually said the semi-final was the best thing to happen to Cork because they were rolling over teams a bit too easily in the round robin. But Waterford gave them a bit of a test in the semi-final, a bit of a reality check. Maybe at half-time Cork needed to change some things, maybe get a bit more energy rolling onto the pitch in the second half. And they got that. They got themselves out of a bit of a hole, and they brought out the subs and got them over the line in the end. Do you think that Waterford game in a way, I know it was 10 points in the end, Seamus, but do you think that could bring Cork on in this final even more?
Absolutely. You need results like that. And there's no question about it. You need games like that where it's put up to you, because you can get into a bit of it when you have everything your own way and you're running through those results, like an average winning margin of 20 points. That shouldn't be a reality. Like, that shouldn't be something that is as common as it has been for this Cork Camogie team. And history of sport will always tell us that someone will always rise up and eventually beat a dominant champion. Like, how many teams have we seen across Gaelic games? Like, the best example is that Cork LGFA team that won 11 All-Irelands in 12 years. And they seemed just to be inevitable, like that they would always win the All-Ireland. But then eventually Dublin rose up and beat them and knocked them off the perch and started a new dynasty. And that Dublin team looked unbeatable until Meath knocked them off their perch, etc., etc. In Camogie, we've seen it. Wexford looked unbeatable. The Ursula Jacob team, the 3 in a row. But times change. And the thing is that with this Cork team, when you're so used to winning and having it all your own way, when a team actually stands there and stares you in the face for 60 minutes and doesn't bow, doesn't break, when most teams do, when 80% of teams do, it can be really, really hard then to actually go within yourself and find that bit to grind out a result like you would have to if you were used to getting over the line. And I think that's a really, really important point that Ashton made, is that Waterford tested that mettle there. So Cork now know going into that final that they have that there. So almost Waterford have done Cork a favour rather than Galway. If I was Galway, I would have rather that Cork hammered Waterford in that semi-final, like battered them with no resistance. So that Galway would have been the battle-hardened team coming into an All-Ireland final against the Cork team that had everything their own way. Because I know if I'm in the Galway camp, I'm just planning to hang in the game as long as possible. Stay in the game until there's 15 minutes left and then try to kamikaze it. Like just try to, a freak situation where you just get a fluke goal or something. Because if you go toe to toe with them, you are going to lose. If you go, player for player, let's just go woman on woman here. Cork have the better players. So you need to come up with a different way that you're going to win this. But you need to drag it into a dogfight, somewhat similar, but a little bit more extreme than what you did last year. Because you did bloody up Cork's now last year. So there's a window there. But I absolutely agree with you. It's no good for Cork eventually when they come up against a challenge if they've had it all their own way up until that point, because then it's very difficult to then at that point, for the first time all year in a final, to have to dig deep. And we saw that, we've seen that with countless teams, that when it really comes time to dig deep, if they haven't had to do it for a while, it's really, really hard to do it. And so I do agree. Thompson had made a great point there. I think a really good example is that Dublin team under Desi Farrell in 2021 lost to Mayo in the semi-final. Like, we were so used to at that point just walking over teams. So when Mayo didn't break, we fell apart. We fell apart because we were used to teams just collapsing. Cork needed a challenge. They needed a team to stand up to them, and they needed to check if that mettle is still there. If that absolute steely determination to do whatever it takes to get over the line is still there. And the other thing is that needs to be pointed out, when Cork had to go to the well and check if their mettle was still there, not only did they win, they won by 10 points. So not only is that mettle there, it's still in pretty good nick.
Definitely is. And I suppose even look at that run to the final and even the build-up to this final, a lot of people have Cork favourites, and a lot of people are comparing the Cork Camogie team to the Cork hurling team in a way, and the way they collapsed in the final. I did ask Saoirse McCarthy this on the Star Sport podcast, this question about the hurlers, and did that kind of change the mentality in a bit? Obviously, it didn't change it too much, but it just made the Camogie team focus even more. That a freak thing could happen, and they have to react to it. And you can't lose your concentration, even a split second. You can't do it. And this is what Ger Manley, in fair, and Matthew Toomey beforehand, has done with this Cork Camogie team in a way. And even look at the hurlers, like I was on your podcast and ours podcast, of course, nitpicking maybe things like puck outs and shooting accuracy that weren't right with the hurling team. And it wasn't all rosy in the garden up until that final against Tipperary. A lot of people might think that was kind of the case, where it was rosy in the garden and they were going in as genuine favourites. With this Cork Camogie team, even look at the journey to the final there, and look at the fact they won the league title, beating Galway by 11 points, by the way. You can't really get a false from this Cork Camogie team either. That's the big thing out of it. So you're always going to try come up with reasons as to why this team could fall. But Cork just, it's the biggest compliment in a way, Seamus, that they haven't done anything wrong, really, have they?
Yeah, no, I mean, they really haven't. I mean, if you've got to the final with an average win of 20 points. And you've, as you mentioned there, Amy Lee's record of how long that she hadn't conceded a goal for. I mean, obviously there's not too much going wrong if they're like that. But the other thing is as well with Cork, in comparison, the Camogie team versus the hurling team, the Camogie team has bags of All-Irelands. If they're at halftime 6 points up, they're not thinking, oh, like we haven't done this before. They're thinking, we know what to do. We've done this, and we've done this time and time and time again. Ashton Thompson, bags of All-Irelands. Katrina Mackey, bags of All-Irelands. They know how to get over the line in these games. If they're in a tight situation against Galway, they hold the aces still in terms of experience. So everything points to a Cork win. Like, we know that everything points to a Cork win. The experience points to a Cork win. The form points to a Cork win. But the other thing is as well that we have to talk about is Galway have been completely flying under the radar all year. People have, myself included, I highlighted that I thought from the start of the year that Galway were the only team who could stop Cork. And that has to be on a day where everything goes right for Galway and everything goes wrong for Cork. Like, something mental needs to happen here in this game for it to go wrong for Cork. Like, I look at like a red card, because a red card shakes up games. You look at like 2019, Dublin Kerry, Dublin huge favourites. I'm telling you, the minute Johnny Cooper got his second yellow and went off, all of a sudden you're like, okay, we've got a game on our hands here. And Tip Cork, the moment that I thought this game's done was when Owen Downey got sent off. That was when I was like, up until that point, I still thought Cork were going to win. I still thought Cork were going to win. I thought Tip are going to make it interesting, but Cork would still probably win. And then when Owen Downey got sent off and the penalty was given, I was thinking, if they score this penalty, this is done. And so red cards can shake games up. If Cork get a red card for someone like Hannah Looney or a Libby Coppinger or a Saoirse McCarthy or something weird where someone just does a reckless challenge and gets a red card, all of a sudden Galway now have a player extra on the field for a long period of time, and that could shake up how you look at the game. But if it's 15 on 15 and Galway decide to go kind of punch for punch with them almost, Cork are going to win. So Galway have to think up of a plan to stop them. But history has shown us time and time again that if champions get complacent, if champions get too comfortable, they can be undone. And they can be undone from within. Where when things go wrong, they don't have the systems in place to deal with a crisis. And Cork haven't had to deal with a crisis, really. Did Waterford put it up to them? Yeah. But going into the final 10 minutes, game was done. Like, Cork were very much in the driving seat still. It wasn't a case of like having to snatch it out of the fire. They won by 10 points. So it still wasn't nail-bitingly close going into the home stretch. When is the last time that Cork have had to win a game nail-bitingly going into the final 5 minutes? The one I can think of, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the 2023 All-Ireland semi-final against Galway was the last time in championship I've seen this Cork team win a game where going into the final 5 minutes, I didn't know who was going to win.
To be fair, would you say the All-Ireland final last year?
I was still confident Cork were going to win. The semi-final against Galway 2 years ago was the one where I was like, there were moments in that game that made me think that's a massive moment for Cork. I think there was one, I think was it Cliona Healy blocked Aoife Donoghue. And it was a really symbolic, like, she blocked her down and took the ball off her. And that was a young Cork girl taking it off one of Galway's talisman. And you were like, that's a huge moment because, like... Another huge moment, Seamus, I remember Saoirse McCarthy on her knees poking the ball out of danger. Yes. Yeah. That was huge. It's those little moments that made the difference. And the thing is that Cork, Camogie are very similar, in my opinion, to like the Kerry footballers and everything like that. That they have bags of talent. And if they get over the line to an All-Ireland, they could be the most dangerous team in the world because they could get the taste for it. You know, the monkey's off their back and now they can go on a roll. And that's clearly been the case. 2 in a row, 1 step away from 3 in a row. We're trying to figure out what do Galway have to do. But this Cork team looks damn difficult to stop. So let's dive into Galway and come up with a plan for them.
Took the word right out of my mouth, Seamus. We will look at Galway's journey to the final and their scores. up until the other. And obviously, look at these scorelines, they're a lot tighter than Cork's, especially the first day out, obviously, against Dublin. It was a 6-point winning margin there, 15 points to 1-6. Not so much the second day out. They beat Derry 425 to 5 points. They beat Kilkenny 117 to 12 points. Beating Waterford then 17 points to 11. That was a big win. I watched that game on the Camogie YouTube channel, and I thought Galway managed the game particularly very, very well on that occasion. And then against Tip, they beat it comprehensively in the end, 118 to 111. And the stat as well, Tipperary only scored 1-3 from playing that game, including a lucky goal, I would say, through Karen Kennedy. So, like, Galway were very, very tough defensively. They've scored an average of 119 per game and conceded an average of 10 points per game. So that's an average winning margin of 12 points. Obviously not as much as Cork, but still decent enough. Considering the sides they've played against as well, like Dublin put it up to them at times, Kilkenny, Waterford, Tipperary. So it's pretty good from a Galway point of view there. Look at their scores. Now, I'd worry about, like, maybe their high scores, Seamus, in many ways, because only 2 players are above 10 points in the Galway team. That is Carrie Dolan on 42 points and Niamh Mallon on 117. The next high score after that is Aoife Donoghue with 17. And then you have Ada O'Reilly on 9 points, who got 5 points in the semi-final win over Tipperary. You Maria Dillon there, Sabina Rabbit, Caoimhe Kelly, all them on the list as well from a Galway point of view. But even look at the league final, coming back to that, Cork obviously won that game 21 points to 10. Obviously, it's not in the list, but that was a different competition. It was the very Camogie League final, and Cork really hammered Galway. I was looking at the 2 teams that Galway played against, Tipperary in the All-Ireland semi-final and the game against Cork, and there was one change. Anya Keane was playing in the league final. She's injured right now. I don't know if she's going to recover for this final.
Nah, she's fucked. she's did you see the, apologies for the language, but she is I don't think she's going to play, and if she does, she's definitely not at 100%, man.
Yeah.
Because did you see the footage of her at the Camogie launch? Like, she was on crutches at the Camogie launch, like getting the photos done. So
I must have seen the good clip, Seamus, because I didn't see her on crutches.
No, there's another one. There's another one with who is it with? But anyway, it's on. You'll find it if you look for it. You'll find it if you look for it. But there's another one where she's on crutches and she doesn't look fit at all. And the thing is, it's one of those injuries as well, like where she could pass the test and then she could go for a ball in the first 10 minutes and just be. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So they have to manage that situation out well, because there's no way she's 100% fit.
That's it, yeah. The player that I was going to say that wasn't there for that day, and you mentioned her earlier on the podcast, Seamus, Roisin Black. She was only a sub that day. She didn't start. And the thing is, Cork scored 18 points from play that day, 72% shot accuracy. I know you're a huge fan of Roisin Black in the full back line for Galway, being one of the best full backs in the country. You think she's the best. Yeah. How big will her influence be on Sunday compared to, like, she wasn't starting in the league final? She would be a massive addition, I'd imagine. She was against Tip.
Oh, she's huge. She could argue she's, alongside Carrie Dolan and Niamh Mallon, in my opinion, she's the most important player for this Galway team. You can add in Aoife Donoghue as well. I think they're the 4 most important players for this Galway team. Roisin Black is who their defence is going to be built around. And you look at Galway throughout this year, the defence has been their calling card. They've only conceded 2 goals in the entire championship, 1 against Dublin and then 1 against Tipperary in that semi-final.
That was a lucky goal.
Yeah, that was a lucky goal. They've managed out, so they've only conceded 1 goal that wasn't a lucky one. Their defence has been absolutely rock solid, and that's going to be their calling card against this Cork team. Cork have too much firepower up front that, Galway are not going to be able to outscore Cork in the terms of, like, if they go in that type of game, like, we'll score more than you won't. Cork have too many threats. Galway's defence is going to have to be so good. It's going to have to snuff out some of the Cork threats. It's going to have to snuff out an Amy O'Connor, a Katrina Mackey, someone like that. But Roisin Black is going to have to hold the centre of that defence and just make sure that no goals come. Because what we've seen in the finals, we saw in the 23 final, Cork were able to absolutely ravage Waterford with goals early on, and the game was over before it even began. The reason that Galway were able to hang in the game against Cork last year for as long as they did was because they did not ship goals the same way that Waterford did. They cannot let the floodgates open there at the back, and Roisin Black has a key role in making sure that doesn't happen. You're absolutely right. I think she's the best fullback in the game with Camogie right now. She's so strong there, number 3. She holds the position so well. Her marking as well, like, is absolutely, and her tackling is superb. So for me, if I was picking an Ireland team, she'd be my number 3, 100%. And I think Galway, she's vital to them.
You led me on nicely to the next question. Who would you put Roisin Black on if you were Cathal Murray?
You see, Galway have to be careful here because, as I mentioned, Cork have so many threats that they can just rotate. They can throw Circa McCartan in there full forward to start, and then they can bring her out to the half forward line. They can throw Katrina Mackey in there to start, and they can bring her out. What I would be saying is, to Roisin, whatever happens, do not leave the square. Do not leave the square. You stay at fullback. I'd be playing a sweeper in there, and I would be playing a sweeper alongside Roisin Black. If not playing Roisin Black as the sweeper, I'd be playing her in there, making sure that nothing gets into that, for a goal chance. It's the easiest trick in the book to put someone on Roisin Black that you do not intend to play full forward and drag Roisin away from the square. Galway need to do everything they can to keep her minding the house as much as they possibly can. And then they need to hope that Carrie Dolan nails every single free that comes their way, and that Niamh Mallon and Eilish O'Reilly have the games of their lives.
The thing is, from the Cork side, you have a plethora of options in defence that could stick on Niamh Mallon or Eilish O'Reilly for play. Countless options, just off the top of my head. Maeve Callan, Libby Coppinger, Pamela Mackey, Aoife Healy potentially. Like, you have Laura Tracy. Well, Laura Tracy would stay in the centre. Like, that's probably the thing from a Cork point of view, is saying from Roisin Black, don't leave the square. From a Cork point of view, don't leave the centre back position for Laura Tracy. Laura Hayes, potentially as well. There is a lot of options there for Cork to mark the Galway forwards, that force.
Yeah, no, there really is. And like, that's, again, Cork's calling card in terms of that. It's essentially pick your poison. And if you put all your eggs in the basket of trying to stop Amy O'Connor, Katrina Mackey will do damage. If you try to stop Katrina Mackey, it will be, we've seen it even there. Was it Orla Mullins that came in the last 6 minutes? 1-2, 1-2 off the bench. Like, crazy in terms of that. They wouldn't have been preparing for that at all. Yet she comes in and does the most damage for them, and that again speaks to their squad depth. You got someone like Claudia Finn there again, who's a wild card. We don't know how fit she is. She might come in. She might be the biggest threat of all. Cork's greatest strength is that there is not just one head to stop. Whereas if you're looking at that Galway team, you're going Carrie Dolan and Niamh Mallon. We stopped them too. Eilish O'Reilly, to some degree, I mean, she did play really well, 5 points, but you were saying there, we should watch, what did she have, 1-7?
She's 9 points in the championship.
9 points, 5 in one game. Yeah. So 4 points in the rest of the year. Now, I don't know if she's missed a couple of games. She probably has.
Coming on a sub more so.
And then, but in terms, the main two is Mallon and Dolan.
Yeah.
And I think if, they will throw someone on O'Reilly, but I think if they can stop. And this is the other thing as well, is Galway are so reliant on Dolan's frees. If she has a bad day, like let's say she just has a day where she can't hit them, they're in big trouble. Because that's been such a key calling card for them all year. I mean, off the top of my head, what was it? Carrie Dolan had 40 points or something? And 32
points in the championship, yeah.
And what, 32 from frees or something?
33 from frees, so 9 from play.
So, 32 frees out of her 40. So she's only got 9 points in play in the entire year. So the frees for Galway have been oxygen for them throughout the year. So Cork, in terms of what they need to look at in their defending, is they need, if I was Ger Manley, I'd be saying, whatever we do, lads, don't foul them. And can you get this stats up there? Have Galway shown much of an ability to score goals? Have they scored more than one goal in any game so far this year?
I'm checking like against Tipperary. To be fair to them now, Seamus, you're saying that and it is true for maybe some parts of the year, but they scored 113 from play against Tip. Okay. Tip in comparison got 111 overall. So that is impressive, to be fair to them. But I'm just going to look at, actually I'll bring it up there, Galway's results just out of this.
So only in
So
one game have they got more than one
more than
goal.
one goal, and that was against Derry. Yeah,
And they're going to need to score more than one goal to win this final, in my opinion.
that's the thing. Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see that. But even look at the stats for both of these sides in the semi-finals. Like Galway, they conceded 11 frees. They won 63% of their own puck outs. They won 53% of turnovers, 65% shot accuracy. That was pretty good in semi-final, I have to say, against Tipperary. 19 shots taken out of 29. And when you look at Tip, they had only 26% shot accuracy from play. So Galway, yes, Tip won 71% of their own puck outs. But Galway's harassing, I would say, for the defenders to put the team forwards that aren't easy to put under pressure. You have the likes of Claude McIntyre there. You have Karen Kennedy. You have Grace O'Brien. They're not easy forwards to put under pressure. So, in that instance, is there an argument to say that Galway are peaking at the right time?
Well, there absolutely is, especially when you look at as well their players, their key players, like Ailish O'Reilly, who I mentioned there. We were saying, well, she got 9 points in the championship so far, yet she got 5 of them in the semi-final. Like, if she shows up and hits 5 points in the All-Ireland final, it could be a massive, massive step for Galway in terms of, taking that next step to win the All-Ireland title. And we're not talking about a Galway team that has no idea how to get over the line too. Like, we're talking about a Galway team that has All-Irelands very recently. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the 2022 All-Ireland winners, isn't it?
2021.
2021, apologies. 2021. We still have bags of the players who are involved in that All-Ireland success. This isn't their first rodeo. They know how to get over the line in All-Ireland finals just as much as Cork do in terms of the All-Irelands. It's just Cork are the form team right now. They are the obvious best team. They are the champs. It's really, really hard to see anything other than the Cork win. And obviously you are rooting in some way for the underdog just because you want it to be a tight final. And unfortunately, in all 3 of the finals that we've had this season, going into the last 5 minutes, we've known who's going to win all 3 finals. We knew that Kerry had it won against Donegal. We knew that Tip had it won against Cork. We knew that Dublin had it won against Meath. So I would love if going into the last 5 minutes, I didn't know who was going to win this game. I'd love if Galway were able to tear into Cork, get a goal in the first 5 minutes, set their stall out, and make Cork sweat. But I just think Cork have too many threats. They have too many ways to win this game. And I think Galway, there's a very clear route that Galway have to go. If you're in the Galway camp, you're thinking, we need to keep the defence tight. We need to drop an extra defender back there. We need to make sure Roisin Black does not leave the penalty box at any stage of the game. Then we need to make sure that Niamh Mallon and Ailish O'Reilly perform above and beyond. We need to hit at least 2 goals, and we need to make sure Carrie Dolan hits every free over the bar. And then we need Cork to have a bit of a stinker. We need Cork to make mistakes. We need Cork to be reckless. We need Cork to get nervous. We need Cork to make unforced errors. And we saw in the semi-final, was it, where Amy Lee made a mistake that led directly to a goal? Semi-final 2 years ago?
Yes. I remember that against Galway, coincidentally.
Against Galway. Moments like that, an unforced error, like you saw the Dublin LGFA team, the all-conquering Dublin LGFA team, Emma Duggan's goal, mistake by Ciara Trant. Ball ends up in the net. Massive boost to Meath. And that ended up being the difference between the 2 teams at the final whistle. They need things to happen where not only is it a massive boost to Galway, but it's a massive blow to Cork that rattles them a little bit. And not just a moment of brilliance from Carrie Dolan or something like that, where they're like, okay, now our turn. We need it to have an instance where Cork are also thinking, what the hell is going on here? We're making basic errors. Really, really difficult to call, man.
Yeah, it is. Before we get into a prediction, though, a very interesting stat. Cork won 100% of their own puck outs, but I listened to Niamh Rocket on Off the Ball earlier today, and she was saying the clear plan for Waterford in the first half, maybe midway through the second half, play a sweeper back there and put pressure on Cork as much as you can. Obviously, Waterford had to chase the game at the end. That's what they had to do. And then Orla Mullins was picking up the crumbs in the Cork attack after that. Do Galway have to play a similar tactic here? Play a sweeper, maybe keep the scoreline tight? They probably have to do that, don't they?
Yes, they do. They do. Because the thing is in this game, right, is that we saw it in the Dublin Meath game last weekend. At Dublin Meath, I was sitting down in Croke Park alongside my team. We were doing all the social stuff. And then last minute it was, all right, guys, what do we think is going to happen? Genuinely, I said to my colleague, I said, the key thing for Dublin in this game is they cannot let Meath grow in confidence. They cannot let Meath think that they have a sniff here. They cannot let them start to believe that this is their day. They need to establish dominance quick. And what did we see in that All-Ireland final with Cork and Waterford? Cork went to establish dominance quick because they knew that Waterford were in their first final in, how long. They also knew that Waterford weren't used to this stage. And Cork established straight away that you're out of your depth here, bud. This is the big show now. And you brought a knife to a gunfight type. And the reality is that going into that final, Dublin established dominance in the first 5 minutes. Niamh Heatherton, Nicole Owens rattling the back of the net. Dublin established dominance over Meath, and then they're absolutely in the ascendancy, and Meath are chasing the game for basically the rest of the game. Now, they were able to pull it back somewhat in the second half, but the game was done. Cork, in their plans to win this game, need to establish that dominance over Galway. Make sure that Galway don't think that they have a chance here. Hitting a goal in the first 15 minutes would be a hammer blow. Like, they really, really cannot concede a goal in the first 15 minutes, Galway. So to answer your question about the sweeper, yes, Galway need to play a sweeper because they cannot allow Cork to establish that similar dominance to what Dublin established over Meath. They need to make sure that at halftime, there's no more than 3 points between the teams. And then in the second half, if you're in the game with 10, 15 minutes to go, now you kamikaze it. now you go for it. You throw Ailish O'Reilly in there, you lob the ball in, put Amy Lee under pressure, see what happens. Because if you go traditional Camogie, score for score, player for player, Cork have the fastest gun. Yeah. And that's the truth.
That's exactly it. That was a great analogy that kind of made me giggle there.
A knife to a gunfight?
Knife to a gunfight. Anyway, away from analogies, prediction time. Do you think Cork can do it? Or do you think Galway can provide a shock in this one to the system, like possibly the tip hurdlers did to Cork a few weeks back?
Okay, yeah. My official prediction for this All-Ireland Camogie final, I think, to be brutally honest, all signs for me point to a Cork victory. Like, you look at their form, back-to-back All-Ireland champions. We were mentioning there, you were talking about the stats. Their average victory this year is by 20 points. Their forward line is ridiculously stacked in terms of talent. You got the likes of Clodagh Finn, Amy O'Connor, Katrina Mackey, Saoirse McCarthy. These players are absolutely phenomenal. They stand on the brink of joining a very elite club of 3 in a row. First team to do it since the Wexford team of Ursula Jacob, at the turn of the 2010s. That's the company that this Cork team are in my opinion. I haven't been as confident about predicting an All-Ireland final in a while. I think the Cork are going to get over the line here. For Galway, if they're going to do it, they need to get over the line. If Galway are to win this All-Ireland final, they need to get over the first 15, 20 minutes without conceding a goal. They need to go in at halftime no more than 3 points behind. And then if they're still in the game with 10 minutes left, they need to go for it. They need to kamikaze it, hope that things fall their way. For Cork, they have too many threats. And if they can stop the likes of Carrie Dolan, Niamh Mallon, Ailish O'Reilly, then they're almost nearly there. Whereas Cork have so many threats that Galway need to worry about down the other end. Galway do have, in my opinion, the best fullback in the country in Roisin Black. They have absolutely superb players further out, as I mentioned, the likes of Dolan, O'Reilly, Aoife Donoghue. But in my opinion, Cork just have too many talented players, too many high scorers, too many ways to win the game. Whereas I think the plan for Galway is relatively obvious coming into this. Play a sweeper, keep the score down, do something similar to what you did last year, and hope that Cork have a bit of an off day in front of goal and everything falls for you and you get over the line. But in my opinion, that's not how this game is going to go. I think this game is going to be really, really tight in the first half. And I think Cork are going to get a goal at a crucial time. And my final score prediction, I'm going to say Cork 115, Galway 11 or 12 points. So I'm going to say Cork 115, Galway 12.
Interesting. I can't remember off the top of my head what I said on our podcast during the week, but I did say it'll be 3 or 4 points in it. So I think Cork will win it. But Galway, they always turn up in finals, and I just feel like, yes, Cork got tested against Waterford, but up until that point, they didn't really get tested. Obviously, that's not the players' fault. It's something that needs to be done in Camogie, maybe to grow the county's confidence in terms of the likes of the Wexfords, the Limericks, the Clares, in terms of ULs after a cup win. Hopefully that will for Clare and Limerick in the next few years. But the reality is that Cork were going through games a bit too easy. Whereas you look at Galway, they got wins over Kilkenny, over Dublin, over Tipperary, over Waterford. Like, those were tight games. That will stand to Galway, I think. The fact that Roisin Black's back in the team as well is going to be a massive boost to them. But the fact as well that the Galway Scars still would have been there for the league final defeat. I know it's two completely separate games, but losing that game by 11 points where the result was never in doubt. Maybe if at halftime it wasn't ever in doubt. Galway only scored 4 points for play that game. Yes, Galway have changed, obviously, the personnel, with one change, obviously, Roisin Black, and she will be absolutely vital this weekend. I just feel like Cork will do enough to get over the line, but we'll have to see what happens. It's going to be a very, very interesting All-Ireland Senior Camogie final, and we'll see if Cork can do the 3 in a row, or can Galway snatch the victory off the jaws of defeat from the Rebels. We'll have to see. Look at the intermediate final, we'll look at the Premier Junior in a bit, but look at the intermediate final, is Offaly against Kerry on Sunday at 3 p.m. That's live at RT2. But just on a general thing, James, it's for the intermediate and Premier Junior. I went to Croke Park last year for the finals, and the intermediate final was between Cork's B team and Kilkenny's B team. Tipperary's B team were the Premier Junior final. Isn't it great that we have unique counties in these stages now? Offaly and Kerry have a golden opportunity here to get up to the senior grade next season to replace Derry. Massive opportunity. And the fact that Offaly won the league as well, they're growing in confidence, which is great to see.
Yeah, no, man. Like, the truth is that I was never, ever a fan of that B team and C team thing. I remember there was one year as well where, to be honest, I remember I was only really getting into media coverage. I think this was 2021, where Galway and Cork played against each other in both finals. Was it? It was intermediate.
Something like that. I think the intermediate final that year, Antrim won it, if I'm not mistaken.
What, 2022 maybe? But Galway were in the intermediate final and they won it. And
I remember. Yeah.
They lost the senior final, and I remember seeing media outlets being like an interview with the winning Galway manager. I remember being like, but Galway, oh yeah, the B teams. It's just like, this is ridiculous. And I was like, if they were to do this in any other grade, if you were to do this in hurling, you know, the John McDonough would have suffered under that same system. I'm not saying that the John McDonough now would be that way. The John McDonough teams have got an awful lot stronger. But you have to let these teams grow in confidence and win things to get up to the next level. You look at Carlow and Kildare, and you look at the success of those teams and the levels that they've gone up. The success that they've had at club level and now at intercounty level has supplemented the growth and the improvement of the team. The fact that Carlow won the John McDonough Cup, the fact that Kildare won the John McDonough Cup, that's going to bring them on leaps and bounds. But if at the very beginning, they were in there with Kilkenny's B team, for example, at the time, or Tip's B team at the time, it would have been very difficult to beat those teams. I think it would have been very, very difficult to beat those teams. You looked at how stacked they were at the time. So, in my opinion, Camogie have done the right thing, doing away with the B teams and C teams, because it gives the opportunity for your Offaly's, your Kerrys, two teams that have very, very strong histories in the small ball as well, in hurling and Camogie. Especially Offaly. I mean, Offaly is one of the royalties in terms of the small ball. It gives the opportunity for those counties to grow, and maybe you'll get more teams at the top table. Whereas when you put B teams and C teams in, it puts a real roadblock on any team being able to challenge their dominance. And there's no question about it. The B teams also played a part in why Cork, Kilkenny and Galway were constantly at the top in the senior finals. Because when you looked at that intermediate final between Cork and Galway, there were players that put their hands up there for senior positions. And, you know, gives them a great factory line of talent there. And the thing is that the big teams are always changing. Like in Camogie, it was Wexford. It was Antrim at one point. It was Dublin at one point. It was Tip at one point at the start of the century. It always changes. And the thing is that by putting in B teams and C teams, you did put a block on teams being able to make massive progress and massive steps forward. So thankfully they've done away with that. And now we have Offaly and Kerry in an All-Ireland Intermediate Camogie final with history knocking at their door. The opportunity to play senior Camogie is an absolutely unbelievable prize for both teams involved here. And to be honest, they have the prime slot. I mean, they're not at 5:15. What time was they say this game is at? 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, yeah. I mean, that's the perfect time. That's the business hour. So they're probably, you could argue, they're going to have very similar eyeballs to the senior final. And there's no question about it. They have the talent there. Straight away, from an Offaly perspective, you're looking at the Teahans. Like, they have absolutely ripped it up. And especially Mairead has been absolutely unbelievable so far this season. Some of the goals that she scored, especially that one in the semi-final, absolute cracker. And I mean, I was chatting with Liam about it, and the more Liam chatted to me, the more I'm like, I know who I'm going with this one as well.
Yeah. And Liam, right on cue, is a comment in here. I hope to God we get a good crowd on Sunday. Having followed this side throughout the championship, they've done the county proud and deserve all the support. Absolutely. And when you look at the minors and the under-20s and the men's side get that support, I hope the Offaly Camogie team do as well. Obviously, they won the league title, deserve it so, and have some fantastic players. They really do, Offaly. And we will get into their scores in a bit. We'll look at the journey to the final for Offaly right now, and we'll look at Kerry's as well in this segment. So looking at the scores, looking at the journey to the final there, they actually lost to Antrim on the first day out, 116 to 3-8, but they recovered really, really well in this Camogie Championship. Offaly, they beat Meath 315 to 11 points, beat Westmeath 214 to 26, and then beat Carlow in the All-Ireland quarter-final 318 to 29. And then got back at Antrim in the semi-final, beaten by a point, 116 to 212. And that's an Antrim team that had the likes of Roisin McCormack, Maeve Kelly, all of them available. So that was a fantastic result for Offaly to get on the board. They've averaged a score 215 per game and conceded an average of 112 per game. And look at their scores as well. Clodagh Laois up the top there, 126. As Seamus mentioned there, the Teahans up there as well. Apparently they are cousins, Mairead and Grace. Mairead has 5 goals and 6 points. Grace has 18 points, 10 from play. Kay Pilkinson up there as well with 2 goals and 6 points. Then you have Famil Rooney up there with 1-2 as well. And you have a load of scores there down the bottom of the list there. The likes of Fianna Dooley is really, really impressive in my opinion. Sharon Shanahan as well did very well for UL in the Ashburn Cup. And whenever I've seen Offaly play, everything seems to go through her, maybe at midfield, and maybe even she plays at half-back as well. So she is a fantastic player and definitely one to look out for, I'm sure, once the final rolls around. Look at Kerry's run to the final, and you'll notice the team here. Kerry have not conceded a goal in this championship. That's exceptional. Look at their score lines. They beat Carlow 2 goals and 18 points to 3 points. Beat Down 13 points to 11, and then beat Kildare 220 to 4 points to finish top of their group and go straight to the semi-final. And then they beat Down again 312 to 16 points. They've averaged a score 215 per game and conceded an average of 9 points. They haven't conceded a goal, as I've mentioned. That's incredible from a Kerry point of view there. Look at their scores. Patrice Diggin up there at the top with 1 goal and 32 points. You've Amy O'Sullivan there with 3 goals and 5 points. Kate Lynch with 2 goals and 5. Jackie Horgan with 1 goal and 7. And you can see down the list of Kerry scores there with 2s and 1s there as well. But both sides have had some interesting runs to the finals. Obviously, Offaly recovering after losing to Antrim and then beating Antrim later on down the campaign. Kerry haven't conceded a goal, which is an absolutely exceptional stat, considering they played a Down team that were senior not so long ago. So both sides have had interesting runs.
They certainly have. And I think when you look at Offaly, like starting with them, the fact that they came back and beat Antrim is absolutely huge, because that's an Antrim team that, in my opinion, at the start of the Intermediate Camogie Championship, to be honest, I would have tipped Antrim to win it. I mean, when you got players in there like the talents of Maeve Kelly and especially Roisin McCormack, like, you have to be considered right up there as contenders. And in my opinion, especially when I seen Antrim beat Offaly, earlier on in the year, I was thinking, yeah, Antrim are on their way and they'll probably do it. But I mean, the way that Offaly dug in that semi-final, the way that they, fought to the bitter end and got over the line by the narrowest of margins, really, really showed a statement of intent and a level of fight that, to be honest, I know we're talking about the senior final with Cork and Galway. Kerry haven't had that same adversity that Offaly have gone through. And this game is going to go down to the wire. Like, you've got Patrice Diggin on one side, you've got Mairead Teahan on the other side. Big players on both teams. And in my opinion, it's going to be, in my opinion, it's actually, I think it's going to be a higher scoring game than the senior final. I think it's going to be free scoring. I don't think there's going to be defensive systems set up by either team. I think when you've got...
You look at Kerry's stats there, Seamus.
But Mairead Teahan is going to score a goal. 100%. There's nothing in my... Like, she's been... And not only that, but the quality of goals she's been scoring. Like, it's not like she's getting scuffed ones in, like, where it hits the post and she's there to hit it in. She's scoring worldies, like. So, in my opinion, it would be too much for the Kerry defence to stop. I think they'll get at least one. If they get two, I think then Offaly will win. But it's so close. You look at how Kerry have won their games. It's been dominant. But I think Offaly have played against stronger competition. And apart from their Antrim games, Offaly have won their games fairly easy.
Yeah, that's the thing. I probably would say Offaly will win this game, and with the players that they have, obviously winning the Division 2A title as well. And worth noting, Antrim actually won Division 1B and will replace Dublin in 1A in the very Camogie League next season. So that is a fantastic achievement for Offaly to get over Antrim in the semi-final, and it isn't been talked about enough. But then again, like Kerry beating a down team with the likes of Sarah Louise Graffin and Paula O'Hagan, that was an exceptional achievement as well. But you'd have to fancy Offaly to win this game. But you have to say as well, whatever happens, Kerry, and to be fair, Offaly after winning the league as well, both have had amazing seasons, but particularly for Kerry, which is predominantly like an LGFA or a men's football county, to get to the final in the intermediate grade, that's a brilliant achievement, to be fair.
No, it's a huge. And then you look as well at the push, for the small ball in Kerry, cross hurling and camogie. You look at how close the men's hurling team was to, breaking through the glass ceiling there in the John McDonagh final. How many cracking John McDonagh finals they lost, and they were never quite able to make that next step. It would be massive for Gaelic games in Kerry if this Kerry camogie team were able to make that next step. It would have a ripple effect across all four codes. There's no question about it, because Kerry then are at the top table in another sport, LGFA, football, and now camogie. And that would give massive boost to the hurlers, to the men's hurlers. Because if they can then, win the John McDonagh next year, and if the camogie team can stay up, then they'll be dining at the top table across all four codes, just like Galway, just like Dublin, just like Cork. I mean, it's the type of thing that every county wants. And there's no question about it. If Kerry can knock that domino this week by beating Offaly, it's a huge step for them. But I do agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, what a surprise. The Cork man and the Dub think that Offaly is going to win when our Offaly friend is probably watching still. But I still do think, Mairead Teahan would be too hard to stop her getting a goal. And I think a goal in a game like this would be massive. And I just feel like, having looked at Offaly, as I said, apart from the Antrim game, they haven't really struggled with any other opposition that they've come up against. And I do believe that if Antrim were in this final against Kerry, I still believe I'd be shading it to Antrim. Mm-hmm. So I have to give Offaly the credit they deserve, and I'm going to go Offaly to win.
Yeah, I'm going to go Offaly as well. And you can see the comment there from Liam saying, cheers, lads. Absolutely. And Liam will get us some All-Ireland joy, I'd imagine, this weekend, and hopefully that'll be good for Offaly. But in general, before we get to the Premier Junior final, I have to say this as well. I'd love Kerry hurling and Kerry camogie to rise up. Mm-hmm. I might not like their footballers in particular, obviously, because they are rivals with Cork in that department. But for the camogie team in hurling, you want more sports to rise in Kerry. I think this story is absolutely remarkable in many ways, because the Kerry camogie isn't taught as much about as, let's say, like, I know this isn't, you're comparing apples and oranges here, but you look at Patrice Diggin is not talking in the same light as the likes of David Cliffords and Polly Cliffords of the world. And hopefully she can raise her claim in All-Ireland final day, whatever the result. Hopefully that can happen, but we'll have to see what happens. But I think Offaly, like Seamus, will win this intermediate final. And finally, the Premier Junior final, and it is Laois against Armagh. This is on Sunday at 1 p.m. live on RT2 from Croke Park. Obviously, in the Premier Junior decider, Laois were in the final last year, losing narrowly to the Tipperary B team, but they are coming up against a unique team this time round. facing an Armagh side that have scored a lot of goals in this campaign in the Premier Junior. And there's no doubt that these two sides deserve to be here. Looking at the journeys to the final for both of them, we'll start off with Laois and then we'll go to Armagh. Look at Laois's journeys to the final starting off things. They beat Wicklow 2-13 to 2-6 to start things off. Beat Roscommon 4-11 to 11 points. They were given a walkover by Louth in the next game. That is another thing that is very, very worrying in terms of the Camogie, and you don't want to see that. Obviously, Louth will see the result that they got against Armagh in one of the next sides, but that was particularly one of the reasons why, I'd imagine, and the number of players in Louth as well. So that has to be taken into consideration. Obviously, the averages for scores and conceded in that case is 5 games, not 6, just to point that out. They then beat Tyrone 2-19 to 2-11, and then beat Sunday's opponents Armagh 5 goals and 10 points to 20 points. Then in the All-Ireland semi-final, that was a magnificent result, beating Wicklow 4-15 to 3 points. They've averaged a score 3-15 per game and conceded an average of 110. Look at the scores for Laois. Amy Collier up the top there with 8 goals and 27 points. Susie Delaney, another player for the UL Ashburn Cup winning team, on 3 goals and 11 points. Kirsten Keenan with 3 goals and 8 points. Emer Hassett with 1 goal and 6. Katie O'Keefe up there with 8 as well as Amy Daly, Grania Delaney, Clodagh Tynan, and all them players from a Laois point of view. Looking at Armagh's journey to the final, if I can bring it up. So they beat Roscommon the first day out, 3 goals and 14 points to 1-9. I told you about the Louth thing. That was one of the reasons why. They beat Louth 7 goals and 37 points to no score.
In 60 minutes, man. That, like, 44 scores in 60 minutes.
No, but to be fair, it does underline, just on that, Seamus, it does underline a bigger problem in many ways. We want teams like Louth to compete, but
I mean, that's fairly brutal, isn't it? I mean, yeah. God.
It really is. But look at the rest of the Armagh scorelines. They beat Tyrone 3-19 to 1-7, so a good result over their Ulster rivals there. They also got a very good result against Wicklow, beating them 4-14 to 1-6. And they lost to Laois in the last group game 5-10 to 20 points. But even that was a 5-point margin, so not too far away. And then beat Roscommon in the semi-final 2-17 to 1-8. They've averaged a score 3.21 per game and conceded an average of 2.5. So very good scoring there from an Armagh point of view. Sinead Quinn is their top scorer with 9 goals and 25 points. 9 goals and 24 points from play.
Crazy.
That's unreal, and definitely a one to watch this weekend. Another one to watch as well, particularly for the frees, is Rachel Berry, who is 37 points, 21 points from frees. Karina Doyle up there with 115. Emer McGeary with 111. Tierna Maxwell with 2 goals and 8 points. Nia Farker with 2 goals and 3. You have Katie Convey with 1-5. Kira Hill with 1-5. And you can see down the list from an Armagh point of view and scores there. But looking at the average scores and looking at the journey to the finals and the scores in the top scorers list, these are the 2 best teams in the competition.
No, they certainly are. I think the one asterisk I would have beside the Armagh, how much did the top 2 score in that game against Louth?
I'd have to. I'm going to check. Yeah, I definitely have it on hand now. I'm just checking it now.
Because if I wouldn't be surprised if one of them got like 116 or 216 in that game.
I'm having a look now at this because the Camogie Association actually, in terms of stats and everything, I'm doing a bit of stats again for the program this year, and the Camogie Association sent me on a few stats from the Armagh Louth game. I'm just checking the score there from that. Oh, I have it here. So in that game, the top scorer was Sinead Quinn with 3 goals and 4 points.
Okay.
And she has 9 goals and 25 overall. So that's, other than the Louth game, she has 6 goals and 22 points.
Still very good. Still very, very, very good.
And then out of the rest of them, Karina Doyle got 1-8 in that game. Tierna Maxwell got 1-6. Katie Convey got 1-4. To be fair, Rachel Mary actually didn't get a score in that game.
Oh, wow.
Either she wasn't playing or...
Yeah, no, I mean, imagine then if she was. We absolutely mental, but that's crazy in terms of, like, I mean, even when you still have to beat the team that's in front of you, 7:37 in 60 minutes is frightening. I mean, that's an average of a score. Like, in under 2 minutes. It's absolutely ridiculous. So they are absolutely tearing it up, but so are Laois. And I think it's really, really interesting to look at that Laois Armagh game. From the start in Prem Junior, I've tipped that Laois would win. I think when you saw how close they were in the final last year, obviously now the B teams and C teams have been done away with, you are looking at them as one of the front runners. But then if you look at the Laois Armagh game, I mean, if you're speaking honestly, what's more replicable? 5 goals or 20 points? What does that indicate more that you are capable of putting up a big tally? It's difficult to say. Like, is it more likely that Laois can rack up that number of goals again, or is it more likely that Armagh can rack up a good solid tally of points again?
It's
like
very,
throughout the
very
course of the year. It's
Oh,
really,
just
really interesting to look at.
Just look at Laois's goal scorers there. Amy Collier is definitely one to watch. And so is Susie Delaney and Kirsten Keenan. All of them have above 3 goals or more. So
Yeah.
especially Amy Collier, 8 goals.
But if we're looking through that, I mean, how many did Amy Collier get against Armagh?
I don't have that in hand now, but I think she got 1, maybe 2. 1,
Okay.
I think.
But this is the key thing, is like, if we look at that game, then again, like Armagh they've conceded an average of 2 goals a game. It does make believe, you were saying that in their thing, 2-5. It does make you believe that Laois will be able to find the back of the net.
The thing is, other than the Laois game, the only game they kept the clean sheet in was against Louth. But then again, they've always conceded 1 goal, other than the Laois game, obviously.
Well, they'll concede more than 1 in this final. There's no question about it. Okay, when you got a Laois forward line there with the likes of Susie Delaney, there's too much power in that Laois forward line to be able to keep them out entirely. I think when you look at that game, goals won those games. I would be saying that Laois will get a couple. I think this could have a replay written all over. I think I could see a scoreline like 16 points to 2-10 or something. I really could. I think Laois will hit the back of the net at least twice. But if it's going to be a win, I'll say a narrow one. I'll go for a winner. It won't be boring. I'll say Laois 2-12, Armagh 17 points.
Interesting scoreline. I was like yourself. I would have said Laois from the start of the season as well. But looking at Armagh's stats there, who's going to pick up Sinead Quinn? That's like, even look at Sinead Quinn's scoring tally there. I know we don't know much about how she plays and stuff, but even look at the stat sheet there, 925. That's remarkable scoring. 924 from play.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
If she hits fire, then again you could say the same thing about Laois or Amy Collier down the other end. It's so close to call. It's a tough one. I'd probably edge it to Laois as well, but I wouldn't honestly be shocked. Look at the stats. I wouldn't be shocked if Armagh got over the line.
So we agree on all 3, man.
Yeah.
There's a possibility where we got everything wrong on this show.
I'm hoping we got everything right now for myself and Liam's sake in particular.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, I like both of you, so I hope he's win all that. Because I'm enjoying life right now since the Dubs won last weekend. Yeah. Don't know, something's just felt better about this week.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we are both saying Laois will win the Premier Junior Championship. So we agree that Cork will win the Senior, Offaly will win the Intermediate, and Laois will win the Premier Junior in this Camogie Finals weekend, or Camogie Finals day, and wishing the players all the very best on the best day of all for Camogie as well. So that is it. That is it in terms of previews for inter-county games this year. Leicester's a replay announced on Sunday, which we don't know until the final whistles of those games. We'll have to see. But thanks to James for coming on. Thanks to Capture Legs for sponsoring tonight's show. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Ring the bell for any notifications on upcoming videos. I might do gradings on inter-county teams in the next few weeks as well. So the content will keep rolling. And obviously, there is club as well. But just a note on club before we finish up on the inter-county season. on this podcast anyway, there won't be any previews of a club until the All-Ireland series kicks in. That's around October, November time. But for the time being, listen to me on the Star Sport podcast for the Cork Club Championships in football and hurling. So that is obviously on the Southern Star YouTube. Check that out if you haven't already. If you haven't checked out the Star Sport podcast after 300 episodes of it, I don't know why you haven't checked it out. But anyway, check me out on that. Check Seamus out on his own channels as well. Thanks to everybody that interacted in the inter-county season. We'll see you in the next video, whenever that is. Until then, take care.